If only there was only one thing that we really want to encourage is this willingness to break down your classroom walls and to connect and collaborate in really meaningful and authentic ways with other classrooms.
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a class intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future. Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I'm Ben. I'm joined here with Dr. Jill. And Dr. Jill, we get the experience a lot of times to talk about this role of digital citizenship. And our guest today talks a lot about digital citizenship and really brings a lot of energy to schools and in her words, school communities, really to celebrate digital citizenship.
Yeah, Marialice is a person that's hard not to know and not to love if you're ever in a room with her or virtually. Her energy is definitely infectious, and she just really gets you excited about helping kids learn from a young age about digital citizenship. But she doesn't forget about those students as they get older, where we're really trying to join in and help as they get to be school age. And so I think when you talk to her and listen to her, you can see that some of our missions really align, and one of our 5 pillars is digital citizenship. And so it's really nice to have the Institute, Digicit Institute, as one of our partners.
Well, Marialice brings a lot of energy to this conversation around digital citizenship. And, that all stems from work that she had in a classroom where students, I think I confronted her, right, about her role as a digital citizenship and really opened her eyes to being able to understand and interpret for lots of schools and school communities. And she's really serving as a connector in that space to those schools and then to a global community, which we're strong believers that the things that we do as citizens can be on a global stage. And that's a really important voice and perspective. And I think it takes a lot of perspectives to really help in this space. So I'm excited for this podcast and for all of our listeners to get to connect with Marialice. Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I am excited about our next guest. Marialice has been doing a tremendous amount of work in the area of digital citizenship, and I don't want to steal any of her thunder. You've got so many things to share with people about how learning communities can be affected with positive use of digital citizenship, and you've got some innovative approaches. Welcome to the podcast, Marialice.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you today.
Well, thank you for joining us. I know we've been connected for a number of years, but you've been working with Dr. Jill in a couple things. I've been collaborating, but I want to talk about a little bit of how you got into this space. How did you develop a passion for digital citizenship?
It starts at the time I was an associate professor at the University of St. Joseph in West Hartford, Connecticut. And I was the faculty member on record for the EdTech program, both at the undergrad and graduate level. And I had a graduate student who always wanted to have an authentic audience for her students. And so she would invite us to come in. And I remember going in, and these third graders on netbooks at the time, they wanted to know immediately, how do you spell your name? So I start to spell my name, and they start typing away. And they said, we're going to check to see if you're making, socially responsible decisions online. And I remember practically gasping, oh my gosh. At that point, I hadn't even Googled myself. I had no idea, what really was out there. I walked away from that moment and I thought, if these third graders, when they go to the fourth grade or the fifth grade or middle school or high school or come to my college classroom, what am I doing to meet their needs? So that really set me off on this journey. So that graduate student, who was paying to be in my course, I want you to know her name is Tracy Mercier. I'll give a great shout out to her. She was way ahead of her time, but I learned more from her than she could have ever learned from me that particular semester. And that coupled with, I was at the time a relatively new mother. And a lot of the headlines were, some really tragic stories around cyberbullying. And I thought, what can I do to make a difference? right? Like how can I change? And so little by little, it was, you started with doing some workshops, and then from there, we'd get lots of phone calls from school districts to come in and do assemblies. And then I am really proud that I am on record in the United States for the creating and designing the first 3 credit course around digital citizenship. At the time, it was like maybe an add-on, maybe you were talking about it.
Mm.
And that third grade classroom really is what motivated me to want to jump in, head first and make a difference, to help make a difference in communities where it doesn't matter how young or old you are, like, we are all in this together. So
Well,
that's the beginning of my journey.
I love that that inciting incident in your story that sort of like challenged you, but also they were almost confrontational about it, which is fun. That they sort of took that on. I think that only happens in the Northeast. In the Midwest, they sort of would have asked you a different question, but in the Northeast, yes, confrontational, even in third grade, right? Like,
Yes, and
um,
that they were the teachers in that
yeah,
moment.
love it, love it. So along this journey, you ended up founding the Digital Citizenship Institute, which is solving and helping solve a really big problem in digital citizenship. But you're doing it in a lot of different ways and some innovative ways. Would love to dive into that. What sorts of ways are you helping to influence digital citizenship in the classroom, at home, with students, with adults, with this whole broader community?
When I was a faculty member, I'd get called and I'd be asked to do an assembly. You talk at, whether you're talking at students or parents or the faculty. But once I started the Digital Citizenship Institute, I don't want to have opportunities where you talk at anyone. That's a one-way street. So we create learning moments for a school community to come and learn together. So at the center, we want students, right? And we want students to be kind of like that description of those third graders, where they're really owning their learning. And so when we work with a school community, we have this ongoing plan. It's for an entire year. It's not that one and done, put a check in the box. Um, and it's very personalized. Then we invite the outside community. So that's the entire school community, right? That's the school board and the administrators and the staff, and we invite everyone to come and learn with the students as they're sharing these projects. We love to put on showcases where we're really amplifying the positive. But not only do we want the school community, we want the outside community, right? We want business leaders and thought leaders and the senior centers, and very intergenerational approach where everybody is learning. So just like me, where it
Hmm.
was like they were typing out how to spell my
Yeah.
name, we could have, and we have had instances where we've worked with senior centers, and the seniors say to the students, I want to do more than just Candy Crush on my device. We all need, and this is that exact quote that I've heard seniors say over and over again, we all need a purpose when we wake up in the morning. And so, young people can teach, okay, well, here's how, you could download music, or here's how you could do grocery shopping, or here's how you could connect with your, loved ones, your grandchildren, or just really thoughtful ways that young people can be using tech for good. That two-way street where, the seniors are learning, and then, the students are learning from the seniors as well. So in a roundabout way, to summarize what we do is we create, when we work with school communities, we want the entire school community to have an opportunity to use tech for good at school, home, play, and work. And that is how you change school culture. So it's not that it's the onus on the school and it's only happening at school. We all need to own the fact that we are part of the solution. And if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, yeah. So is it typically a teacher that reaches out to connect with you? Is it a school or school district that reaches out to connect to you? How does that usually happen?
The person making the decision is always the administrator, but it is the
Mhm.
enthusiastic educator, or it's the, the tech integrator, or the media specialist, the librarian, who says, we want something different. Because there's a lot of canned programs, right? Like that you can just get. And to me, that's a great way to start. Um, but when you are really interested in changing your school culture, then, you would contact us, and then they'll say, Monday morning is always like in the office for an administrator about issues that have happened over the weekend, all involving technology. And the only way they're going to start to change is not that we talk about it, that we actually do this. And that idea of doing it side by side, right? Like
Yeah.
that no matter how young or old you are, no matter what
Mm.
your role is in that school community, we are all actively doing it. That's when things start to change. And so that's why school communities then will say, okay, can we do this again? And can we add a different layer? What's that next step that will add to the positive impact of what's already happening in your school community?
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that thought. Obviously, we need innovators in schools that are sort of reaching out, wanting to change that culture, and it doesn't always change from the top down, right? Sometimes it's that we want to communicate about our school district, right? Like we talk with a lot of people in a communications role, and that's a lot of collaboration happens there. But then when we get into the actual teaching components of it, right, we need innovation there too, which can shape. Maybe you've got some experience how it shapes the culture internal to the school, and also how it shapes the culture of that school within the greater community, the literal community that it sits in geographically, or things like that. Have you experienced that?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to give a shout out to Lakeshore Central School District in
Okay.
upstate New York. And it was an assistant, it was two tech integrators who said, we need something different. They made a decision that they wanted to do a cohort. Let's start with a small cohort from elementary to high school. So we had probably about 20 classrooms, and every school librarian that first year, we did individual projects is what ended up happening. Like there were 20 different things that were happening. And then when we worked with like the professional development with that cohort, but then there was a lot of work going into the classroom. There was work, meeting with parents and caregivers, sometimes for those coffee sessions in the morning, in the evening. Like you were just trying to invite as many of the school community. And
Mm.
then we put on a showcase, and that showcase was a student led, what we call a DigCit Summit. Everyone, the school board, all the administrators, staff, teachers, parents, caregivers, outside community came to the school. It was kind of like an open house. You got like a colored card, and that color card said where you were starting. We had different locations. And then like every half an hour you would change, like there was a direction. So these students got to have these ongoing conversations and share these like really meaningful projects. It was different than like
Mm.
the one time I get up and I just do a session. These were really powerful conversations. And to hear some of these elementary like teachers that got to go around, and when by the time they got to like the high school, they said, that was my former student. I never would have ever thought they would have had the confidence or the passion or the drive. Like this was really fantastic. The
Mm.
superintendent, and the school board to say, just legitimately how proud that they were, that the students saw that their words and their actions matter.
Mm.
And that, it's just as easy to do something kind as it is to do something that's not kind. And it rippled. It had a ripple effect from the elementary
Mm.
school to the middle school to the high school to home and to the outside community. I don't know if, in Nebraska you follow the Buffalo Bills at all, but
Yeah, a little
DeMar,
bit.
okay, DeMar Hamlin died
Yeah,
on the field.
yeah.
And that
Saw it
affected,
live.
yeah, that affected their community. What can we do to make a difference? So
Mm.
they made sure they connected to the athletic department and wanted to make sure that they all knew how to do CPR, but that like the team captains knew how to do
Mm.
CPR. And this whole initiative that really had nothing to do, right, necessarily with technology, but there was a problem in their community. They wanted to solve
Mhm.
it. And then their willingness to break down classroom walls and
Mm.
share what they did, that's the part about use tech for good. And if we have more moments like that, then I'm inspired, I'm empowered. I say, oh, there's things in my own district that I'd like to change. Like in my community, I want to change. Like, and if those students did something, we can do something like that. And that's the ripple effect.
Yeah, I love that thought. So, like a lot of things that we sort of get inspired by, right? Like they might happen on social media. They might happen, in that case, on TV, right? It had a ripple effect through fans, through communities, through the nonprofits that Damar was serving, fantastic ways that a lot of positive came out of what was a tragic and obviously redeemed story in a lot of ways that he's back on the field and sort of sharing a lot of that positive. So I love that thought that like sometimes it's from the outside, it's coming in that all of a sudden we use that as a way to process and make great digital outcomes and in-person outcomes.
Right, and that for those students to feel like that it empowered them, that they were
Mm.
gonna make sure that that never happened in their community, like, that
Yeah.
everyone was gonna be involved, learning CPR, and that this was really something valuable. It wasn't the focus around the tech part was that their willingness to share it, and, um, and that's really powerful. Those moments are really that changes you, and that changes your school culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to highlight a couple things that you have going on as well. Obviously, love the signage behind you, enabling wicked smart people, right? Like you're sort of like, I love that, finding new enablers. And you certainly are finding new enablers digitally and in classrooms and in school communities. Two, I want to highlight on your website, you've built your own AI bot or connected with OpenAI and some of those aspects. How's that going so far?
There was a middle school teacher, Heather Brantley. She's out of Texas, and she was like, "I wish I had for my students a bot that was, trained and specific around digital citizenship." And it was never an intention that we were going to have an AI bot, but we found this to be an opportunity. Our AI bot, our classroom assistant, the name is Mundo. And again, my colleague Juenia Tasmez in Mexico, Mundo is world in Spanish, right? So that's why we went with Mundo for the name. Heather Brantley's students, middle school students, were part of the training process as well, which is exciting that young middle schoolers had that opportunity to have those, not only the opportunity to do it, but those conversations around why it was important. We consider Mundo an opportunity to be an idea starter, um, a polisher for work that's already done, or that classroom guide or assistant. One thing that we are passionate about is that you don't talk about things, you do them, and that we don't talk about things that like don't do this, don't do that. We want to have those conversations, those don'ts change to from reactive to proactive. And so Mundo is an opportunity, we hope, and we have a book. We self published a book, Learn with Mundo, Learn AI with Mundo. The book is all the layers of digital citizenship. So, to
Mm.
help guide, whether it's a classroom, a school community, at home for this book, um, these conversations around using AI safely,
Mhm.
responsibly, to see, our place in it, because in Mundo, no login. We're not collecting any personal information. But I mean, if you put personal information in the bot, then no matter if it's Mundo or it's Chat GPT or whatever, then you are providing. And so we have to have these conversations, not just with
Yeah.
young people, all ages, right?
Yeah.
About what's happening. And so we feel like this is a safe place to start to get your toe, like dip your toe into this, world of AI, and then continue to add layers. So whether it's going to be CuriPod or Magic AI or whatever those other platforms might be, this is a great starting point and a critical conversation.
100%. No, I love the way that you're integrating mission, you're integrating your passions. We're very aligned on so many of those things that we really believe that an authentic audience is so important, that creating together is so important, that embracing the positives of tech is really important. The way you're advancing the conversation in AI, also very important. I would say adults need that same thing. I've been working with our team actually one-on-ones through our entire company to literally sort of break down ways that we can be using AI better so that I can both listen and then we can inject different ways that others are using it and start to break that down. And it's amazing the learning that's happening from the adult full-time, professional community in this space. Things are changing quickly.
It's exciting. It's really
Yes.
exciting. And, for anyone that it will say, I'm not tech savvy or that makes me really nervous. I mean, all you really need is a willingness and a disposition to say, I might be really uncomfortable, but I am willing to learn alongside you. And that
Mhm.
alongside you could be a student, could be a colleague, like think of all those different ages, right? You just have to be willing to say, I am willing. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I am willing to learn with you. That's all you need. That's it.
100%, 100%. Well, Mary Alice, it's been really fun to see your passion on display, to see so many ways that you're connecting through these learning communities, through school communities, and I think it's such an important voice for really advancing all of that dialogue. Any ways that people can be connecting with you as they think about building a connection with digital citizenship?
Sure. So probably the easiest way, it's Mary Alice, but Mary Alice is, everybody when I was growing up was a Mary somebody. So I grew up in Boston, right? Everybody was Mary somebody. But my parents made my Mary an I, so my Y's an I. And then my A for Alice is all one word. So it is spelled differently. So, but Mary Alice at DigCit Institute, and obviously DigCit is short for Digital Citizenship. So DigCit Institute. And then our website is DigCit Institute. We did buy the URL Learn with Mundo, and that will redirect you right to the DigCit website. So, and then on, social, I probably am most active, personally on Twitter, even though it's changed and it's not the way, or I guess X now. It's not how it was early on for us early adopters that really
Mhm.
loved connecting with educators around the world. But that is all my initials, which is MBFXC. Again, from Boston, Irish Catholic. All those are all saints names for the MBFXC. But that's my handle on Twitter, on X, and that's where I am still probably more than any other social media platform.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you so much for being with us, and glad to have you on the podcast.
You have been part of this ongoing journey, and I'm really grateful and to be alongside you. And I'm looking forward to years and years of it.